materials to hopefully help you understand. So hopefully those are available to you. So first, I wanted to say that preserved land is acquired at great landowner cost and sacrifice, including numerous bankruptcies of the parties that provided the land because they couldn't, because of regulation, including things like the NCCP. I also want to make a point that this land is subject to county jurisdiction. So it's within the county, portions are within the county land, and portions of this preserve are actually subject to county and land manager habitat management agreements. So I kind of want to show you how, HCPs fail to preserve the environment and break public trust. This land manager who's managing under an HCP. Sorry?
Mr. Chair, this is item 6 that we're going to be hearing later today. Just
This is not item 6, sir, because this is something that needs to be brought to your attention, because this is how lands are actually being managed. I have a specific comment on the NCCP. This is about HCPs in general and how they function. And so we're dealing with one specific HCP up here.
Go ahead and finish your comments, please.
Thank you very much. So I want to show you that on this preserve, it's about 1,600 acres. There were about 15 miles of trails blazed by the Mountain Biking Association members that were actually authorized by the land manager. The land manager promised that, historically, the public wasn't supposed to be even on huge portions of this property, given sensitivity. In reality, they made trails, they built bridges. This is part of a 24-hour legally accessed trail system. Now, that means that the public came in, they actually dug out historic closed mines, which created a safety issue. The land manager left these open until the county was finally involved.
Ma'am, if you could.
Then this land manager.
Ma'am, if you could please conclude your comments, your time has ended.
Sure. There were mismanaged eucalyptus clearing projects, as you see. There are some questions that need to be answered. Basically, preserve managers should never be granted legal title. They need to be replaced when they mismanage land, and there needs to be real oversight and accountability. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Does that conclude non-agenda?
That concludes non-agenda public communication this morning, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We'll proceed on then to the approval of the statement of proceedings and the minutes for the meeting of October 14th, 2020. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
Supervisor Jacobs need a motion, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar. Any comments or questions? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Very good. And I think we got everybody's vote on that one, did we not? Okay, we'll move on now to the formation of the consent calendar. All items on the agenda will be considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion unless there's a desire on the part of the public or members of the board to pull items for further discussion. Let me start off asking the clerk if there's items that have been pulled by the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 1 has been pulled by the public. Item 2 has been pulled by the public. And item 6 has been pulled by the public. All the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda may be placed in the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
Very good. I'll ask my colleagues if they have items to pull or additional comments to make, starting with Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment on item number 8. In addition to approving an MOU with the City of San Diego and San Diego County Water Authority, item number 8 also approves the acceptance of $1.5 million in grant funding from the State Water Resources Control Board for the Mapleview Street Green Infrastructure and Water Quality Improvement Pilot Project. This project is in the community of Lakeside at the intersection of Mapleview and Highway of green infrastructure provide improved conveyance of stormwater flows, retain runoff to reduce the likelihood of mobility and safety, add green spaces, and promote community. And I'd like to especially thank county staff for applying for this grant funding and move a very important project for this community in Lakeside. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Gaspar.
Thank you. I'll second the motion, Chairman. I have no additional comments to make.
All right, Supervisor Fletcher.
Sorry, I have
Supervisor Fletcher.
a quick question for staff on item 4. I know we're accepting a donation. I just want clarification that we're not going to see funds to complete that. We're going to wait for additional donations. I'm just curious if my understanding of that is correct. I know the total cost of that windmill is $160,000. We're accepting $15,000. Is that the plan and what we're voting on?
Supervisor Fletcher, that's correct. We will be working to solicit and find grant funding and also work with our Park Society Foundation to raise the funds. This is a way that we receive funds throughout for purposes of parks and recreation and various amenities, and then seek grant funding or for our foundation to help fund the rest of what's needed.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I have no other items to pull. No questions.
Okay, Vice Chairman Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any other items to pull. However, I do want to make a comment on item number 5. First of all, I want to thank the Department of Public Works and Recreation for Public Parks and Recreation for bringing this item forward. Last year, the Valley Center Parks Board took an action to submit an application to LAFCO to transfer their authority, land, and tax assessment to the county. At no fault of their own, the Parks Board came to the realization they just don't have the operational revenue to maintain the parks that they have, let alone develop any new parks within the community. Valley Center is a growing community that is severely underserved by parkland. So I'm very pleased that this board has already showed a commitment to the Valley Center community by approving $4.4 million in this year's budget to bring the Valley Center parks up to the county's standards. This action brings us one step closer to upgrading Valley Center's parks and allowing us to provide new recreational opportunities in the unincorporated area for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I have no additional comments or items to pull. So we do have a motion by Supervisor Jacobs, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar, to approve the consent calendar. If there's no further discussion, let me ask the clerk to go ahead and identify those items we'll be voting on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The following items have been pulled for discussion this morning. Items 1, 2, and 6. All the remaining items are on the consent calendar. And with that motion, item 3 introduces 2 ordinances. The first ordinance is amending Title 8, Division 1 of the San Diego County Code to provide clarity as to the use, regulation, and release of lien contracts as security for subdivision improvement. The second ordinance is amending Title 8, Division 1 of the San Diego County Code to allow subdivided property to be reverted to acreage. And item 7 introduces an ordinance of the County of San Diego establishing fees and charges for the provision of water service by County Service Area number 137. That's Live Oak Springs Water System. With that, Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob.
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar.
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond.
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, the first item for us to discuss today is item number 1. This is amending Title 5, Division 1, Chapter 2 of the County of San Diego Code of Regulatory Ordinances related to light pollution. And this is the first reading. Let me ask if we have a staff presentation on this item.
And Mr. Chairman, before we begin the staff presentation, any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial in to the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you.
Yes, Chairman Cox, we do have a staff presentation.
We'll go ahead and hear that now.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and Supervisors. My name is Robert Eford with Planning and Development Services, and I will be presenting item number 1, a proposed amendment to the light pollution chapter of the county's Code of Regulatory Ordinances. The proposed amendment will add a section to the light pollution chapter that meets the standards of the International Dark Sky Association. The existing code language does not meet these standards. Protection of dark skies helps to maintain rural community character and can contribute to an increase in tourism and dark sky-related activities. The proposed amendment will also enhance protections for operation of the county's 2 observatories on Mount Laguna and Palomar Mountain. Founded in 1988, the International Dark Sky Association works to protect night skies from light pollution by providing leadership, tools, and resources for individuals, policymakers, and industry. As documented by the International Dark Sky Association and others, protection of dark skies limits the harmful effects of light pollution on wildlife, human health, cultural heritage, and safety, and reduces excess energy use. The International Dark Sky Places program was founded in 2001 to encourage responsible lighting policies and public education. The program includes a dark sky community designation for cities and towns, and a dark sky park designation for publicly or privately owned spaces protected for natural conservation. Applications for designation must include commitments from the community to broad support for the effort and a commitment to local outreach, education, and reporting related to dark skies. In 1985, the County of San Diego adopted a section of code known as the Light Pollution Chapter to address light pollution, with the specific goal of protecting the Palomar and Mount Laguna observatories. In 2009, Borrego Springs achieved designation of a dark sky community and is currently California's only dark sky community. Anza Borrego State Park achieved designation as an International Dark Sky Park in 2018. Over the years, the International Dark Sky Association has continued to update and refine their standards to address changes in technology and lighting practices. Only new applications for dark sky designation are required to meet the most recent standards. Existing designations, like Borrego Springs, are honored based on the standards applicable at the time. The proposed amendment was initiated by a request from the Julian Dark Sky Network to analyze the code changes necessary for it to apply for designation as an international dark sky community. The Borrego Springs Dark Sky Coalition also requested to be included in the update, although as previously mentioned, their designation remains in place regardless of the board's action on this item. PDS worked with the other county departments of Parks and Rec, Public Works, and General Services in developing the proposed amendment. The current light pollution chapter divides the unincorporated county into 2 zones. Zone A for the areas within 15 miles of either the Palomar or Mount Laguna observatories, shown in yellow, or Zone B for all areas outside of Zone A, shown in green. Next slide, please. The proposed amendment to the light pollution chapter will create a zone, Zone C, for the community planning areas of Julian and Borrego Springs, shown in blue. Zone C, as proposed, meets the standards to be considered for International Dark Sky Community designation. Having a separate code section dedicated to dark sky standards will also allow the code to be updated more simply in the future as dark sky standards change or as additional county communities wish to be considered for inclusion. While Zone C regulates similar aspects of lighting as Zones A and B, Zone C is generally more restrictive and introduces a limit on the total amount of light per acre. Zone C also includes specific standards for fuel canopies and public lighting, and more restrictive standards for signage, hours of operation, and sports fields. The proposed amendment will go into effect once adopted by the Board of Supervisors. The new standards will be applied immediately for projects submitted for plan review after this date. For existing development to come into compliance, there is a 10-year grace period for resident and business-owned lighting and a 5-year grace period for county-owned lighting. For most light bulbs and fixtures, this allows them to be used for their expected lifespan before replacement with dark sky compliant bulbs and fixtures. Steps to achieve compliance range from something as simple as using a different type of light bulb to modifying or replacing the lighting fixture. In general, the new standards curtail the overlighting of public spaces and private spaces, but there are provisions to ensure sufficient directed light for safety and business operations. Public roads will continue to be lighted, and businesses will be able to keep lights on during their hours of operation and for safety and security. The proposed ordinance also includes cleanup language that applies to Zones A and B. These items include revised definitions, inclusion of new light types and new technology, reorganization for clarity and ease of use, revised exemptions, and the addition of an equipment substitution section. Staff sought input from the public and stakeholders through a variety of methods, including emails, phone calls, mailed letters, and a project website. Staff provided presentations to the Borrego Springs CSG, the Julian CPG, community members at large, and individual stakeholders. On September 21, 2020, the Julian CPG voted unanimously for Julian to begin the process of becoming a dark sky community. On October 15, 2020, the Borrego Springs CSG voted unanimously to support the light pollution chapter amendment as presented. Input received from the public and stakeholders has been supportive of the proposed changes. Stakeholders believe that having Julian, Borrego Springs, and Anza Borrego State Park as all dark sky designated places will signify a dark sky region within San Diego that will increase quality of life and related tourism activities. In some cases, stakeholders commented that the changes should include standards more stringent than the International Dark Sky Association standards. These comments advocated for lower light limits or a prohibition of landscape lighting and decorative lighting, warmer color temperature for sports field lighting, shorter hours of operation, and shorter grace periods for compliance. Staff evaluated these requests in the context of the cost and availability of lighting required and made adjustments or text clarifications where feasible. As is their policy, the International Dark Sky Association did not provide comment other than to review the proposed code language for consistency with their standards. Staff met with the International Dark Sky Association representatives multiple times and received confirmation that the Zone C language, as proposed, is consistent with their standards. Staff determined that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act because it does not result in changes to land use or density, includes actions related to the preservation of the environment, and can be seen with certainty to have no possibility to cause significant effects on the environment. In conclusion, staff recommends the following. Find that the proposed amendment complies with the California Environmental Quality Act and state and county CEQA guidelines, approve the introduction of the ordinance, and on November 18th, consider and adopt the ordinance. This concludes the presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions.
Are there any questions to staff before we get into public comment? Seeing none, it's my understanding we have at least one individual that wanted to speak on this item. The clerk would go ahead and call them up at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also note for the record that we received 6 e-comments on this item. As you indicated, we have one request to speak on this item. That individual has called in. You will need to press *6 to unmute your phone, and we'll ask you to please state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Aaron, if you could please identify the caller.
Yes, 0771. It looks like you are unmuted and you may proceed. Oh, you just muted yourself. You may proceed.
Oh, there we are. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Good morning, Chairman. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Good morning. Let's try again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Gabalden, and I'm SDG&E's Public Affairs Manager, speaking on behalf of my 4,000 colleagues. First, let me begin by affirming our support and appreciation for the work of our regional observatories and the dark sky organizations. Their partnerships have yielded great results. As you know, we too are results-oriented, and at SDG&E, our primary focus is on delivering clean, safe, and reliable power to our customers. The backbone of these efforts is our highly trained employees who maintain and enhance our infrastructure while developing critical partnerships to achieve those goals. As we've worked to come up to speed on this item, please know we're appreciative of county staff has been open to conversations about our questions and concerns. One example is safety lighting around towers and other infrastructure. Together with our public safety partners, SDG&E is always eager to innovate on aerial flight safety around our infrastructure. We would like to ensure our staff and other partnering agencies are free to develop and implement best-in-class initiatives in a timely manner. This will require more flexibility in the ordinance. At this point, we have more questions than answers, and as a result, we would respectfully request the board move this item forward and direct staff to continue the dialogue with SDG&E and report back in 90 to 180 days. As always, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chairman Cox.
Okay. Supervisor Jacob, you want to make some comments or a motion?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really a big news for the community of Julian in particular. I'm not going to outline what staff already indicated, but it's the result of an individual named Doug Solacey. Doug has led the Julian Dark Sky Network, and he is the one that's responsible for getting this on the agenda today and moving this on so that Julian can become designated as a dark sky area. Doug's story was highlighted a few weeks ago in the Union Tribune, and it's safe to say his passion to preserving the dark sky is second to none. And I want to take a moment just to applaud his efforts in what we have before us today. And he's very, very committed, and for a good reason. This is very exciting for not only expert astronomers, but also the amateurs too, for our very starry dark sky in the backcountry. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the cities, they can't see that, all the stars and the dark sky, but you certainly can as you get further east, and especially in Julian. The changes also are going to assist the community in obtaining this official designation as the international dark sky community, and something they will be sharing with Borrego Springs. I want to thank particularly Mark Wardlaw, Eric Lardy, Rami, and their staffs for all the hard work on this. And it's time to go look at the stars. And I would urge everyone to support this effort. So I'd put a motion on the floor as recommended by staff, but also request that staff work with SDG&E to resolve any issues that they may have.
Very good. We have a motion by Supervisor Jacob. Vice Chairman Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it, and all the comments from Supervisor Jacob and having this item on the agenda here today. Now, Borrego, dark sky has been a big draw for Borrego to go out there. I go out there frequently, and it's fantastic when you see the Milky Way and everything else from the desert floor, as well as hopefully now from Julian. So I'll second the motion and gladly support this item.
Very good. We have a motion by Supervisor Jacob, seconded by Vice Chair Desmond. Any additional comments? I would just commend the staff for the work that they've been doing. Supervisor Jacob and Vice Chair Desmond are very fortunate to have some dark sky communities in their districts, and I enjoy going to both of those areas. So I look forward to seeing the display of stars that are out there on a regular basis. If there's no further discussion, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman Cox. With that motion, this item introduces an ordinance amending Title V, Division 1, Chapter 2 of the County of San Diego Code of Regulatory Ordinances related to light pollution. That's POD 19-006. And with that, Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob.
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar.
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond.
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
The next item we're going to hear is item number 2. This is administrative actions and ordinances to retitle the Department of Environmental Health to the Department of Environmental Health and Quality and implement associated organizational changes. I believe we have a staff report on this, and then there are at least 2 speakers that wish to speak on this item. So if staff wants to go ahead and start with the presentation.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll ask those two individuals that requested to speak on this item to please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. As a way to continuously improve programs and services that touch our communities on a daily basis, departments within the Land Use and Environment Group, or LUGE, regularly examine their operations. Over the past 8 years, several LUGE departments have implemented organizational changes to improve efficiencies, centralize functions, and better serve our customers. This includes Planning and Development Services in 2012, Parks and Recreation in 2016, Public Works in 2019, and this year in the Department of Agriculture, Weights, and Measures. The Department of Environmental Health has also reviewed the department's structure, operations, and services. This analysis identified organizational changes that, when realized, would more accurately reflect the broad spectrum of programs that protect public health and the environment. It would also improve implementation of programs and leadership recruitment and retention. We are here today to present for your consideration administrative actions and ordinances to retitle the department to the Department of Environmental Health and Quality, or DEHQ, and implement organizational changes. The proposed organizational structure is consistent with other environmental health structures in the state. These changes can occur within the current operating budget, utilizing the department's current staffing positions, and will continue to support the day-to-day regulatory program operations of the department. I will now turn the presentation over to Nicole Bogosian Ambrose from the LUGE Executive Office.
In order to implement organizational changes in the Department of Environmental Health, Board of Supervisors approval is needed to amend the county administrative and regulatory codes and the compensation ordinance. As displayed in the chart shown, these ordinances would codify changing the department's name to the Department of Environmental Health and Quality, or DEHQ, retitling the department head and deputy director positions to reflect the department's new name, and retitling the assistant director position to be the new division director of environmental health, who is a registered environmental health specialist, which is required by state law. As Sarah highlighted, additional staffing is not needed to realize the proposed organizational changes. This organizational chart provides a functional view of how the operations and programs in the department will be structured. The department head, director of DEHQ, will continue to provide overall leadership and oversight of department operations, including budget administration and implementing strategic and innovative operational planning. The Division Director of Environmental Health, who is required by state law to be a registered environmental health specialist, will have immediate supervision of programs such as food safety, body art, public swimming pools, sewage spills, and medical waste. These are known as health officer programs and are shown in blue. Previously, the divisions with health officer programs were not grouped together. This new structure will enable the Division Director of Environmental Health to have increased focus on health officer program implementation, emerging trends, legislation, and stakeholder engagement, as well as collaborate with the county public health officer during outbreaks of illness or case investigations. State law does not require the Division Director of Environmental Health to be a department head. Throughout the state, more than 80% of directors of environmental health are not department heads. The proposed changes expand opportunities for qualified individuals with or without a registered environmental health specialist certification to be department head or deputy directors. The two deputy directors will oversee the non-health officer programs and administrative support functions shown in black. The proposed actions presented today require 2 hearings. Today's recommendations address the CEQA exemption, approval of the introduction of ordinances, and hearing procedures. If adopted, or if approved, adoption of the ordinances would take place after the second reading on November 18th, with the changes becoming effective on January 1st, 2021. This concludes our presentation, and staff are available to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions of supervisors before we get into the public testimony? Seeing none, why don't we go ahead and deal with the two public speakers that we have ready to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. Then you will need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at the time. And I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could identify the first caller, please.
Yes, our first caller is 2716. 2716, you may be muted on your end.
Nope.
Oh, here you go.
Chairman Cox and Supervisors, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Scott Rosecrans, and I'm an Environmental Health Specialist 3 within the Land and Water Quality Division of the Department of Environmental Health. I've worked in this capacity for over 20 years and have served as a member of the county's hazardous incidents response team for more than a decade. Along with other county staff, I was deeply involved with the 2003, 2007, and more recent wildfires to assist with cleanup and rebuilding efforts. In short, I've been around for a while and have seen a lot of the good that the Department of Environmental Health can do over these past 2 decades. I'm speaking in opposition to the proposed administrative action for the following reasons. The action being proposed admittedly affects no change in the levels of service within the Department of Environmental Health. The proposed action does little more than retitle 2 positions at the top of the organizational chart and add the 2 words "and quality." In stark contrast to the rhetoric found in support of this action related to synergizing, reinventing, reimagining the Department of Environmental Health, this proposed action does little more than demote the current Director of Environmental Health position, both in authority and compensation, to an Assistant Director, and places a position above it that could be filled with someone who lacks the educational and professional credentials to serve as a Director of Environmental Health. The expressed intents of this action are to help with the implementation of programs, leadership, recruitment, retention, and succession planning. I see this action as having the opposite effect in many ways. If the intent is to assist with implementation of programs, changing the department name will do little to assist with this. One needs only to ask the line staff within DEH how programs can be better implemented, if that is the goal, and to act on those suggestions that have merit. Staff input and opinions can be helpful and should be sought out regularly. I know of no staff person within the Department of Environmental Health outside the upper administration who supports this action, and many are reluctant to voice their opinion due to concerns for their future employment/promotional opportunities within the department. Changing the name on a position does not impart leadership. Leadership is cultivated and learned over years of experience and accumulation of knowledge and understanding of the people who you're leading and what the goals of that group may be. Our department suffers from the administration not understanding the people whom they are leading and the day-to-day challenges and tasks faced by office and field staff. Since the completion of the county operations building and the relocation of the Department of Environmental Health to the 5500 Overland Avenue location, I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen a director-level person within 10 feet of my cubicle. My cubicle happens to be on the same floor as our director-level staff. The goal to helping with recruitment and retention is not going to be improved by lowering standards and hiring or promoting persons with lesser professional and educational qualifications. Dozens of staff people within the Department of Environmental Health have the education, experience, knowledge, credentials, and expertise to serve at the supervisory level, chief level, or director level. Many of those that lack educational requirements or credentials, such as an RHS, are actively working towards achieving those goals. Implementing this action will be a slap in the face against these people who have dedicated their time and energy to self-improvement, only to potentially see the Director of Environmental Health and Quality sidestep the requirements they themselves are striving to achieve.
Thank you.
It also appears to be an overt attempt to circumvent state law.
Thank you. Your time is up. If you could please conclude your comments.
Lastly, there's the issue of costs. The action claims to impart no increase in annual costs and no added staff years. While that may be the case, it does not report or estimate the cost and staff time to prepare this action and the expected cost to implement it. A conservative estimate would be 1,000+ hours of staff time and tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in actual costs to see this ill-conceived action to fruition.
Thank you.
I think staff time and those monies could be better spent on the good things the Department of Environmental Health does every day for the citizens of San Diego County. I oppose this action, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2481.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. My name is Elise Rothschild, and I'm the previous County of San Diego Director for the Department of Environmental Health. I'm in support of this item, renaming and restructuring of the current Department of Environmental Health. This will change the leadership structure to be more efficient, focusing on position qualifications and strengths while maintaining the Registered Environmental Health Specialist, or REHS, qualifications in the required programs. This will also help alleviate the ongoing challenges with leadership recruitment, retention, and succession planning that this department has struggled with even before my time there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item today, and I encourage you to vote in favor of this item.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chairman Cox.
Okay, we certainly thank both the speakers in this item. Let me turn it over now to board discussion. Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gives me a bit of concern what I heard from the first speaker. And the question that I have, is this a top-down change or is it bottom-up? Were the staff within the department included in the discussions to make this change? That's one part of the question. And the second part, on the salaries at the top, is this either individually or collectively increasing the salaries at the top?
Supervisor Jacob, as it relates to the first question, let me start with there have been multiple conversations at the staff level, various meetings within divisions to discuss the changes that we are proposing today. A lot of the questions that had been raised during those workshop conversations and discussions really had to do with, are we adding staff? And then also going to your second part of the question, are we increasing salaries for executive level? As far as the increase is concerned for salaries, no, there will not be any additional costs incurred by the department. And as it relates to the staffing, the questions were related to how will things be structured? So will the REHS still be required for purposes of those health officer related programs and services that we provide? And the answer to that was yes. And when we look at the larger organizations, as Nicole mentioned in her presentation, for purposes of environmental health departments, the environmental health portion for the health officer duties are either divisions of public health departments or of larger organizational structures, which is part of what we're looking at for purposes of the County of San Diego. You heard Elise discuss her support for this, and I think part of that has to do with Elise came from Sacramento County, and they implemented a structure similar to what we're proposing in 1988, where the health officer duties would really be focused for purposes of the division director of environmental health with the REHS, and they found successes with that. And as it relates to the department head, there's a lot that goes into the leadership, and as we saw with the organizational structure that we had up for the presentation, we have a number of programs and services in addition to the health officer programs, and the person at the top of the organizational structure would be helping lead the strategic approach to all of those programs. As far as the innovation and inquiries, as far as how things can be done, that was raised by Scott Rosecrans, who's a very talented member of the DEH team. That happens on a daily basis within the Department of Environmental Health. There are items that are proposed by staff members that are evaluated by the leadership and at times also by the Land Use and Environment Group Executive Office if it has a reach beyond the Department of Environmental Health. So those lines of communication are always open. And then for purposes of the REHS and the proposal before the board today, it doesn't prohibit or prevent those with REHSs to become the department head. It actually encourages that. However, it is also opening the opportunity to the 160 other staff members who may be part of the organization who may not have the REHS, who may be able to also lead the department. The department has health officer related programs, but then also those that are not, such as our vector control program and some of the other programs that you saw within the structure.
Thank you, Sarah. Just a follow up. I heard you say that you did meet with the staff within the department, but did you really listen to the concerns and what we heard today, the concerns that were expressed, and were any of those concerns taken to heart? And did they have any effect in the outcome? Or was this just simply Sacramento did this, it worked well in Sacramento, so now we're going to do it for San Diego?
There actually were some changes that were also provided, and I can turn it over to the DEH team members. At this point, Amy Harbert can go into some of those details, Supervisor.
Yes, Supervisor Jacob. We have had a number of staff engagement sessions that we've conducted going back to last spring. And it's because of our staff input in those processes that we were able to make a number of changes that have been contributing to the proposal which is before you today. We had very valuable input. Staff members helped us look through various code section updates and provided us with feedback, including highlighting for us that the medical waste program was a health officer program that we needed to also make sure that the Division Director of Environmental Health had oversight of. So over the past few months, a number of different opportunities for staff engagement and input, which we have really valued and incorporated.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other comments from board members? If not, I would move for approval of the item.
Second. I'll second. Desmond.
Vice Chairman Desmond. Any additional comments? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman Cox. With that motion, this item introduces 3 ordinances. The first ordinance amends the San Diego County Administrative Code relating to the retitling of the Department of Environmental Health, establishing the position of Director of the Department of Environmental Health and Quality, defining the duties and authorities of the Director of Environmental Health, retitling the Environmental Health Advisory Board and appointment authority for the county veterinarian and related actions. The second introduction is an ordinance amending the San Diego County Regulatory Code relating to the retitling of the Department of Environmental Health, defining the duties and authorities of the positions of Director of the Department of Environmental Health and Quality and Director of Environmental Health and related actions. And finally, introduces an ordinance amending the compensation ordinance and establishing compensation. With that, Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
The last item we have on our agenda for today is item number 6, which is to receive the North County Multiple Species Conservation Plan status review and options assessment and provide direction on options. I know we have a number of speakers on this item. Last count was about 10, but before we get to those speakers, we'll go ahead and have a staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask all those members of the public that have requested to speak on this item to please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Thank you.
Chairman Cox, we'll just need a minute for the team to get situated. Thank you.
And for the board's reference, we have 13 requests to speak on this item.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and Supervisors. I'm Deborah Mosley with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and I'm joined today by Chelsea Oakes with the Planning and Development Services. Today, we will present item 6, which includes an overview of the North County Multiple Species Conservation Plan status review and options assessment prepared by the Multiple Species Conservation Program, or MSCP staff team and ICF Consulting. This is a request for the board to receive the assessment and provide direction on the options identified. In 1997, the county partnered with 11 jurisdictions to develop the MSCP. This Joint Habitat Conservation Plan and Natural Community Conservation Plan are also referred to as an HCP and NCCP, ensures compliance with the state and federal Endangered Species Acts and the State Natural Community Conservation Planning Act for a 50-year permit term. The Community Sub-Area Plan, also known as a South County Plan, was adopted in 1997. The Sub-Area Plan includes a southwestern unincorporated area and created a more predictable permitting process to balance the protection of plant and animal species with the demand for housing, non-residential development, recreation, and agriculture. The county has successfully implemented the sub-area plan for 23 years, assembling 79,188 acres, or 80% of the proposed preserve, providing mitigation exemptions for 1,224 acres of agricultural clearing, and streamlining the permitting of over 3,900 private development projects. From 1998 through calendar year 2019, the county invested a total of $209 million in land acquisitions for the MSCP, of which $114 million is from county funding and $95 million is from partnering organizations and grants. After adoption of the sub-area plan, staff focused their attention on developing a 50-year plan for the North County. The most recent draft was provided to the wildlife agencies and discussed with stakeholders in 2017. Based on the feedback received, the county contracted ICF Consulting, a national leader in regional conservation planning that has successfully prepared HCPs and NCCPs for counties such as Yolo and Santa Clara. ICF Consulting was selected to review the draft North County Plan in relation to current HCP and NCCP regulatory requirements, confirm that the desired benefits of the North County Plan can still be realized, identify other options to address Endangered Species Act compliance, assess their implications, and present them for public input. Recommend strategies to improve the planning process should the county proceed with the North County Plan. ICF has identified 5 options based on the county's unique biodiversity and their work with other jurisdictions. The benefits, implications of these options were evaluated and summarized in the assessment. Of these, 9 criteria were considered to prepare staff's recommendation: regional conservation benefits, permits from the wildlife agencies that allow public and private projects to impact covered species, compliance with the county general plan conservation and open space goals and general plan EIR mitigation measures, cost and time to prepare the plan and the estimated annual cost for the county to implement the plan, county's ability to process projects during plan development under the Habitat Loss Permit Ordinance, and the county's ability to provide mitigation exemptions for single-family home construction and agricultural clearing. The county also took into consideration the stakeholder feedback received. I'll now turn it over to Chelsea to walk through the county's options to address Endangered Species Act compliance.
Thank you, Deb. These options are: Option 1, project by project, federal and state Endangered Species Act compliance, under which project applicants would seek permits individually from the wildlife agencies. Option 2, preparation of a conservation strategy, a non-regulatory guide to streamline the project-by-project permitting process. Option 3, preparation of a federal habitat conservation plan and state incidental take permit under California Fish and Game Code Sections 2081 to provide federal and state Endangered Species Act coverage for county projects. Option 4, preparation of a federal habitat conservation plan and state incidental take permit under Fish and Game Code Section 2081 to provide federal and state Endangered Species Act coverage for both public and private projects. And Option 5, preparation of a revised North County plan as both a federal habitat conservation plan and state natural community conservation plan to cover both public and private projects as originally envisioned. Under option 1, the county would no longer pursue a regional conservation plan. Because there would be no adopted plan to follow, project applicants, including the county, would pursue incidental take permits and negotiate mitigation requirements with the wildlife agencies on a project-by-project basis. Instead of receiving the benefits of permit streamlining or regulatory assurances, the inefficiency of project-by-project negotiations may add an additional 12 to 24 months to the permit process. This is because applicants would have to coordinate with both the county and wildlife agencies separately instead of receiving incidental take directly from the county as part of their permit. Without the preparation of a conservation plan, option 1 is inconsistent with the county general plan conservation and open space goals, which identified the protection and enhancement of natural habitat through a managed preserve system. Option 1 is also inconsistent with the general plan EIR mitigation measures, since they assumed the North County plan would be prepared as an HCP and CCP. Finally, option 1 is inconsistent with the county's habitat loss permit ordinance. Under this ordinance, the county issues habitat loss permits to projects impacting coastal sage scrub, the primary habitat of the endangered coastal California gnatcatcher. For the habitat loss permit ordinance to be valid, the county must be entered into a planning agreement with the wildlife agencies for the preparation of an HCP and CCP. Because this option does not include the preparation of an HCP and CCP, efforts to enter into a new planning agreement would cease and the habitat loss permit ordinance would be invalidated. To remedy these inconsistencies, should the board direct the county to pursue option 1, staff would prepare a general plan amendment and revised EIR, and return to the board to rescind the habitat loss permit ordinance. Under option 2, the county would prepare a non-regulatory conservation strategy that guides future conservation and mitigation actions. While the conservation strategy would not result in incidental take permits or regulatory assurances, it would be designed to help streamline the project-by-project mitigation process by setting specific conservation requirements that may reduce the likelihood that the wildlife agencies require additional mitigation. To align with the general plan conservation and open space goals, the conservation strategy would include many of the same elements of an HCP and CCP. However, it would not have to include the more costly management and monitoring requirements, since the county would not seek HCP and CCP permitting approval from the wildlife agencies. Option 2 would not satisfy the mitigation measures of the general plan EIR, and the county would no longer be able to issue habitat loss permits because this option is not an HCP and CCP. Should the board direct staff to prepare a conservation strategy, staff would prepare a revised general plan EIR, return to the board to rescind the habitat loss permit ordinance, revise the draft North County plan, and prepare the environmental document. Under option 3, the county would prepare an HCP that provides Federal Endangered Species Act coverage for county projects. Instead of pursuing an NCCP, the county would scale back its conservation efforts to meet the more achievable permitting requirements under Section 2081 of the California Fish and Game Code. A 2181 permit has several important limitations from an NCCP, including that the no surprises assurances that the terms of the conservation plan will not change in response to unforeseen circumstances are not available, and that the permit is unable to cover species that are not currently state listed. It would need to be amended should new species become listed in the future. Like under options 1 and 2, private projects would not receive coverage under this option. Private project applicants would instead pursue their own permits from the wildlife agencies on a project-by-project basis and would be unable to receive mitigation exemptions. Similarly, option 3 would not satisfy the mitigation measures of the general plan EIR, and the county would no longer be able to issue habitat loss permits because this option does not include preparation of an NCCP. Should the board direct staff to prepare an HCP 2081 for county activities, staff would prepare a revised general plan EIR, return to the board to rescind the habitat loss permit ordinance, refine the proposed covered species list, revise the draft North County plan with the wildlife agencies, and prepare the environmental documentation. Like option 3, option 4 involves preparing a federal HCP and scaling back the county's conservation efforts to meet the permitting requirements under Section 2081 of the California Fish and Game Code, instead of the higher regulatory standard of the NCCP Act. However, a plan prepared under option 4 would provide coverage for both public and private activities. Since private projects would be covered under this plan option, the county would be able to include mitigation exemptions to reduce the permitting cost burden for single-family home construction and agricultural clearing, as are currently included in the South County Plan. Like the previous options, Option 4 does not include preparation of an NCCP and would therefore not satisfy the general plan EIR requirements, and the county would be unable to issue habitat loss permits. Should the board direct staff to prepare an HCP 2081 for public and private activities, staff would prepare a revised general plan EIR, return to the board to rescind the habitat loss permit ordinance, refine the proposed covered species list and plan area boundary, revise the draft North County plan with the wildlife agencies, and prepare the environmental documents. Under Option 5, the county would build upon the 2017 draft North County plan as an HCP NCCP. Option 5 would provide the greatest conservation benefits, as the NCCP Act requires all NCCPs to go beyond mitigation to contribute to the recovery of each covered species and to help prevent the decline of other species in the future. A plan prepared under this option will also provide the greatest regulatory certainty for both public and private projects, include mitigation exemptions to reduce the permitting cost burden for single-family home construction and agricultural clearing, and be fully consistent with both the county general plan and general plan EIR. As an NCCP, the county would also enter into a new planning agreement with the wildlife agencies, which would allow the county to issue habitat loss permits for impacts to coastal sage scrub while the county completes plan development. Should the board direct staff to prepare an HCP NCCP, staff would finalize the draft planning agreement, refine the proposed covered species list and plan area boundary, revise the draft North County plan with the wildlife agencies, and prepare the environmental documents. Depending on the option directed, next slide. Depending on the option directed, one-time program development costs range from $300,000 to $3.5 million in fiscal year 2021. Funds to develop a plan under options 1 through 5 are not included in the fiscal year 2021 operational plan. Plan development will instead be funded through available general fund balance. The assessment estimated average annual county implementation costs for a plan developed under each option. Estimated annual averages range from $4.6 million to $7.2 million and are anticipated to be funded through general purpose revenue appropriations from the board as part of the capital program. Up to $2 million of this cost may be offset by existing annual MSCP appropriations for acquisitions, management, and monitoring that are currently spent in the North County Plan area. Implementation costs, funding sources, and staffing needs will be further assessed and refined as part of plan development and will be presented to the board for adoption at a future date. A public outreach and comment period was held for the assessment from March 4th to May 14th. The assessment was posted online and notification was sent via email to listserv subscribers. Updates were provided as outreach shifted from in-person to virtual in compliance with state executive orders. The county held virtual meetings and phone calls with public agencies, community groups, business and environmental organizations, and members of the public, meetings with the wildlife agencies, group and one-on-one meetings with North County MSCP steering committee members, and a virtual Q&A session with members of the public. A recorded presentation was also provided to the community planning and sponsor group chairs in April, and a follow-up discussion was held with them in June. Conversations with the wildlife agencies, steering committee members, community planning groups, and stakeholder groups continued throughout the summer. During public outreach for the assessment, stakeholder feedback was generally supportive of option 5. Of the 32 comments submitted, 26 supported the preparation of the North County Plan as an HCP NCCP. These included comments from the Building Industry Association, Sierra Club, Environmental Habitats League, the City of Carlsbad, Warner Springs Ranch Resort, and Stay Cool for Grandkids. Stakeholders provided various reasons to justify their support for option 5, with most focusing on the environmental benefits, the regulatory assurances or no surprises, permit streamlining and mitigation exemptions, reduced permitting costs, and alignment with the county general plan and general plan EIR. Staff requests that the board receive the assessment and provide direction on the options identified. Staff recommends the board direct staff to prepare the North County Plan as an HCP NCCP under option 5. A plan prepared under option 5 would provide the greatest regional conservation benefits, the greatest range of project coverage, and strongest permitting assurances of no surprises to all stakeholder sectors, is the only option to fully align with the county general plan and general plan EIR, and the only option to allow habitat loss permit issuance during planned development. This concludes our presentation, and staff is available to answer your questions.
Thank you for the staff report. Are there questions of staff before we get into the public testimony?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair Desmond.
I have multiple questions, but I think I'd rather wait until after the public testimony.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Seeing no other requests to speak, we'll go directly to the public testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll note for the record that we received 41 e-comments on this item. We have 11 callers on the line ready to address the board. We'll be calling the speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone numbers. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Erin, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, our first caller is 2750. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Cox, members of the Board of Supervisors, Dan Silver, Endangered Habitats League. Hope you're all doing well. We also support option 5. We served on the advisory committee for the North County plan and also for the South County plan in a similar capacity. The ICF report is thoughtful, it's thorough. We commend its production by Department of Planning Development Services. You've heard that option 5 has the most benefits, and we agree with that. It's much superior to a partial plan, but it's also cost effective. And it's the only one that fulfills general plan and mitigation measures. The county is currently a nationally recognized leader in habitat planning. The North County plan can build on that achievement and promises an array of benefits from streamlining to infrastructure to ecosystem protection and recreation. In the North County, there'll be a particular opportunity to integrate agricultural operations, and that will be very important. We realize that getting to a final product will take much work and collaboration. We are certainly ready to commit to that task and would look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next caller is 8046. 8046.
Good morning, Chair and board members. This is Noah Harris, policy advocate with Climate Action Campaign. I'm calling this morning to express my support for option 5 to revise and adopt North County MSCP. In the face of climate change and increasing threats to sensitive and rare local species, the county must work to secure effective wildlife corridors between core habitat areas, and option 5 is the best path forward to produce a comprehensive and integrated plan that is consistent with the general plan and that ensures our critical habitats are protected. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Our next caller is 8569. 8569. You may proceed. Oh, you just muted yourself. You are unmuted and you may state your name for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, my name is Frank Landis, and I am the Conservation Chair for the San Diego chapter of the California Native Plant Society, and I also served on the steering committee for the North County MSCP. I'll keep this brief. We support option number 5. I think everybody else has made a really good case for this, and I think it also helps native plants. We hope to see the county develop North County MSCP, and I and CPS in general are very happy to work with you to do so. So thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you. Our next caller is 5195. 5195.
Good morning. This is Jim Whalen. Hello, Chair Cox and members of the Board of Supervisors. First of all, I want to thank staff. They did a great job getting to where we are right now. This is a tough one. I'm here on behalf of Warner Springs Ranch Resort in support of option 5. You can see Bill McWethy's letter in your staff material. The reason why Warner Springs is such a big deal is it's the largest open space area in North County that has the best conservation opportunities. I am on the stakeholder group, and I have 5 points I want to make on the staff report. The first one is the planning agreement. It's very important. The county has a 1992 NCCP enrollment agreement that still applies and is superior for the county's purposes. All admit that the expanded NCCP Act is harder to comply with, so why would you if you didn't have to? And if you want an example of this, Santee is doing it right now, also under the 1992 enrollment agreement they did. Second point, there's no reason to change the original MSCP deal points, which Supervisor Jacob and then Supervisor, well, actually all of them participated in drafting the deal points. The county plan needs to continue with a hardline approach. It's always been the basis for forming the preserve. It's important to landowners. Third point, leverage your acquisitions to increase your coverage. County has a very aggressive acquisition plan, and you should take advantage of that to improve your coverage of various species that the land that you're buying has living there. The fourth point, you have a very aggressive schedule. It appears that you have a 1-year horizon to prepare a plan. That would be terrific, but it's really not likely to happen, and I'd like to hear staff comment on that one. And then the fifth and final point is this is very important to retain the habitat loss permit process. So option 5 really is your only way to go. I urge your support, and thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Our next caller is 4323.
Good morning, Chair Cox and Board. This is Bill Tippett. I'm also a member of the Southwest Wetlands Interpreters Association. I'm on the board, and for 11 years, I was the manager for Southern California for the Department of Fish and Wildlife's NCCP program. And I was involved with the NCCP, MSCP North at the time. We support option 5 for a couple, well, four reasons. For nearly 25 years, the MSCPs have proven to be the most effective process for integrating habitat species, conservation, and development. I think Jim Whalen and others would agree with that. Second, North County MSCP, if it's adopted, would provide the same benefits that the South County stakeholders already received. So there'd be a consistency there. Third, the MSCP is a key factor in local participating jurisdictions getting to leverage federal and state dollars. Without an full NCCP, HCP, you wouldn't have the same standing to apply for federal and state funds that would help offset the costs of implementing the program. And fourth, option 5, as your staff report and the ICF report showed, is the most cost-effective means to achieve that. It benefits both conservation advocates and the development community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next caller is 4458. 4458. If we don't hear from you, we'll come back to you. The next caller is 9983. 9983.
Good morning. This is Laura Hunter, and I'm a coordinator of the Wildlife Habitat Conservation Coalition. You have a letter from us urging your support of option 5. As others have said, it's the only option that meets the intentions and obligations laid out in the county general plan. Further, I think it's important that it's the only option that builds on the significant investment made already in the South County and provides parity to all interests. It's very important to do this now. In the 20 years, I'm a North County resident, and in the 20 years since the adoption of the South County plan, North County habitat areas key to this issue have been under intense threat of loss, and many have been lost altogether. As a result, there are fewer core areas of smaller size, so that the design with the wildlife linkages are a very critical part of this plan. For any of you on the fence, please just open your packet to attachment F and look, the costs are stunning in terms of advocating for option 5. The cost to the county is about the same over 50 years, but the savings to developers is in the billions, and this doesn't even probably acknowledge the amount of time that it would save. So this is a very important smart growth effort. It's the only option that moves us further down the road of realizing the integrity of the habitat planning vision and provides the greatest regional conservation benefits. It's the option that provides the unmatchable environmental and economic benefits for all stakeholders. So thank you for your time, and we urge you to direct staff to pursue option 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2311. 2311.
Hello, this is Mary Clark calling from Oceanside. And good morning, Chairman Cox and Supervisors. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of Friends of Agua Hedionda Creek, which is a group of residents of North San Diego County who are working to protect the valuable environmental resources at the headwaters of our creeks. Our particular focus is on the protection of the habitat and wildlife at the headwaters of Agua Hedionda Creek. This area was identified in the 2009 preliminary public review draft report for the North County MSCP as a pre-approved mitigation area due to its important environmental resources. We have been following the development of the North County MSCP since its inception, and we are pleased that the county has retained ICF to review the plan and develop options for its future. The ICF report clearly demonstrates that option number 5, the revised North County plan, is a superior alternative for all stakeholders. We concur and urge the board to vote to approve option number 5 so that the county can proceed to develop and finalize this important plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 4109. 4109.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. My name is Hannah Bay. I'm the Executive Director of the San Diego County Farm Bureau. I'm also the Administrator of the San Diego Region Irrigated Lands Group. There's over 5,000 farms in the County of San Diego. There's over 1,600 members that are part of our Farm Bureau organization. San Diego County is the 12th largest farm economy in the state. It's the 19th largest farm economy in the nation. Since 2010, when you review the County of San Diego Department of Agriculture Weights and Measures crop reports, we've experienced a 22% decline in agricultural acreage in 9 years. That's approximately a loss of about 70,000 acres of farmland. The majority of farmland in San Diego County is located within the boundaries of the North County MSCP. Our agriculture community is highly concerned about this plan. Pretty much the only thing we can support right now is the exclusion of the Rancho Guajito farm from this property. We need some assurances that the MSCP, if it moves forward, is going to benefit agriculture. We cannot exacerbate an existing crisis of local loss of farmland. In the current plan, it has no text, it has no map, and although county staff has gone above and beyond to explain different caveats of this plan that may benefit agriculture, there is no assurances. We need assurances that the North County MSCP will not kill agriculture in San Diego County. We need assurances that implementation of the North County MSCP will help and encourage the expansion and addition of agricultural acreage. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 4792.
Good morning, Chair Cox, board members, and county staff. My name is Ed Pert, and I'm the Regional Manager for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife South Coast Region. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on this agenda item. I have also been requested by Scott Sobiak, the Carlsbad Field Office Supervisor, to speak on behalf of the Federal Fish and Wildlife Service because they could not attend this morning. As you know, the county has been working in partnership with state and federal wildlife agencies for the past 23 years to successfully implement the MSCP in southwestern San Diego County. Working together, we have conserved over 79,000 acres in San Diego County while allowing for development to continue in the plan area in a way that balances species conservation with population growth and development. My department has reviewed the assessment by ICF, and we support their recommendation to proceed with option 5, which is to continue with the preparation of the North County MSCP. If the county decides to move forward with the North County plan, we believe that the county will experience the same benefits in the North County as it has in the MSCP in the South. And if the board approves moving forward with the North County plan, the state and federal wildlife agencies will be available to work with county staff to provide technical assistance on the preparation and permitting of the plan. I want to be sure to mention that we very much appreciate the long-term partnership with the county regarding this very important program. And again, I thank you for this opportunity to comment on this item.
Thank you. Our next caller is 3789. 3789.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Board of Supervisors, my name is Camille Perkins, and we own land mapped in the North County MSCP. In my opinion, the MSCP process and presentation in front of you is a sham. Let us be very clear about what the MSCP in its current form will do. It identifies sacrificial lambs to bear the preservation burdens for the region so others can more easily and cheaply develop their land. No compensation, no on-the-ground studies today. This affects the use and value of our property. Look at the costs that another commentator submitted on e-comment. It's a huge impact. The MSCP is a sham because property owners like us have no representation on the steering committee. In fact, nearly all members of the steering committee appear directly or indirectly to financially benefit from an HCP. You heard one earlier describe a conflict of interest. In fact, county staff failed to answer my questions about conflicts of interest. In fact, staff has refused to answer any questions submitted to them in writing during the public comment period, including from me. The MSCP is a sham because sacrificial lambs haven't been told. In fact, the entire MSCP process has been insulated from non-friendly, non-steering committee public participation and input, especially from landowners. Staff has made it almost impossible to participate in this process, even though I'm on the stakeholder list. I don't believe the county is upholding its legal notice and comment obligation under its agreement with the agencies. The MSCP documentation is a sham. What is in front of you today is only a benefits assessment, not a cost and benefits assessment. Combined with staff's failure to answer questions and letters, I don't believe you have the information you need to take an informed decision today. I request staff be directed to engage with constituents, answer questions and letters, and address issues. 2, please make it easier for the public to participate. Notify affected landowners by mail. Invite stakeholders via email to steering committee meetings. 3, establish a representative steering committee that includes landowners. 4, establish equity mechanisms so regional burdens aren't shouldered by a handful of sacrificial landowners. And I've added 2 comments that aren't on e-comment. Please also request the county withdraw the overreach into dictating how annexed lands into a city can be used. We need this issue to be addressed, especially those of us within spheres of influence and already subject to HCPs. 6, please impose real protections, oversight, and accountability for habitat preserved under an HCP. We see earlier, I described how these protections are woefully inadequate and causing habitat destruction and degradation. HCP reports I've read to the county and others omit what I consider material facts and do not mention real habitat degradation. Every day I watch these preserves being destroyed. This needs to be stopped, damages reversed. Thank you very, very much for your attention.
Thank you. And our final caller is 4458. Again, 4458. If you'd like to address the board, please press *6 to unmute yourself now.
Yes, good morning. This is Matthew Adams calling from the San Diego Building Industry Association. We are in support of option 5. As a past steering committee member for the creation of the original MSCP, we believe that this is a worthwhile endeavor at this stage. I do wish to point out, though, that whether or not the industry will ultimately support the plan, will depend on the final program components, but it is absolutely an effort worth proceeding. What we're going to be looking for is consistency with the existing MSCP, which is a national model, species and habitat coverage, and mitigation ratios. I will say that an appropriately designed plan could be beneficial for all concerned, which is why we support moving forward with option 5 this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chairman Cox.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank all the speakers on this item this morning, and I'll now proceed to board comments. Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a long time in coming. You and I both remember when the South County MSCP was adopted, and it's been a huge success. 23 years ago, I remember it well, and as was stated by one of the speakers, that yes, I was privileged to co-author the deal points and the South County plan. And today, because of that, we've been able to balance development, protect endangered species, preserve vital habitat, and conserve close to 80,000 acres in that area. That's essentially 80% of the goal towards the 50-year plan for the South County MSCP. And I will note it took less than 5 years to adopt this plan. There's a lot of history there. I won't go into all of it, but it has been a success. Unfortunately, we haven't had quite the same success in North County because 23 years later, we're still working on developing that plan. I know there's plenty of reasons why, but the fact remains we are here today being asked on providing direction towards the next steps. So this is a big day, and I hope that we can be successful again. Plain and simple, I, for one, want to get this plan done. And I hope in the future, whoever's on the board will continue to make that happen. I think we can have the same success in North County that we've had in South County. And I'm hopeful that by having a new consultant on board that specializes in conservation plans will serve us better. And you and I both remember that our success way back in the day was because we brought the development interests together with environmental interests, and all were on board. And we're seeing that again today. The roadmap, keeping staff committed to completing the task at hand, is going to be a job for the future board, but it will allow us to cross the finish line. So I am wholeheartedly in support of option 5. I think, as the staff indicated, this option will build on the 2017 preliminary draft North County plan to prepare a complete document that would satisfy the permitting requirements of the Wildlife Agency. I think we have to remember, in contrast, if we don't do this, that each development that's proposed has to go through a very long and onerous and costly permitting process through the federal government. In addition, this option 5 is fully consistent with the county's general plan, our updated EIR, and it's the only option that's consistent with the county's planning agreement with the agencies, and in the end, will provide the greatest regional conservation benefits. However, I want to point out the comments made by the representative of the Farm Bureau, because I think while it's important to work and continue to work with all the stakeholders, I think especially working with the Farm Bureau, they will play an integral role in the plan's development while also preserving agricultural properties and industry. As was pointed out, our ag industry, our ag promotion program, which this board has unanimously supported, we want to be able to continue those efforts and not have this plan interfere with those at all. In fact, I'd like to see it not just preserving existing agriculture, but expand on our agricultural benefits. So with that, I put a motion on the floor, staff recommendation, which is option number 5, and also to direct staff to continue working with all the stakeholders, especially the Farm Bureau, and helping to preserve and expand our agricultural operations consistent with our ag promotion program. That would be my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Jacobs, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar. Additional comments?
Mr. Chair, I would just echo the comments of Supervisor Jacob. I think, you know, these things are difficult and challenging, but I think we've gotten to a good initial starting place. I think obviously seeing it through to fruition and getting this done is going to be vitally important. But I appreciate all the work that's been done to date, and the general direction we're headed, I think is very positive. We're going to be very mindful to the implementation and the actual adoption and development of the formal one. But I think we are headed in the right direction. I think this can be a very useful tool to our county, both in ensuring the conservation of our species, ensuring environmental protection, but also providing a pathway for responsible development. So I'm pleased to support this as well.
Okay, additional comments? Vice Chairman Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate this, letting me weigh in on the North County draft plan. I've got several questions that for staff on this here. I know we've got the South County plan, and and it was one of the first ones to be adopted, I think, in the country, and has been a good tool. But however, the wildlife agencies haven't always stayed out of the arena once we've had the South County MSCP. So I want to make sure, because the big selling point of this is that the county will have the authority now, and the developers or development won't have to deal with the wildlife agencies, but that hasn't always been the case. So can staff explain how they can potentially put in any safeguards to ensure the wildlife agencies stick to the agreed to plan and do not interfere with projects that are actually covered in the MSCP? So are things we can include in the plan going forward?
Thank you. Through the chair, Supervisor Desmond, there's a number of things that could be put into the plan, such as the no surprises policy and items that we would negotiate for. One of the items that we would want to include is set standards and guidelines, which we do not have in place in the North County area today. And so if a plan is adopted by the agencies, we would be able to hold them to those standards. But that could be something we would continue to negotiate with the agencies on.
Well, I would like to see that and make sure that's done, because that's the selling point we hear over and over, is that, well, the development doesn't have to deal with the wildlife agencies, but that hasn't been always the case. And I guess, what impact is there going to be on land that's already pre-approved as a pre-approved mitigation areas? So if land is designated as that, as I've seen in the 2017 draft plan, how's it going to affect property owners, their rights to develop or to farm, if they're a pre-approved mitigation area?
Through the chair, Supervisor Desmond, in this MSCP recommendation, option 5, ICF, our consultant, has recommended that we move away from the concept of a pre-approved mitigation area. And by doing that, we would be focusing on more criteria-based design that sets very clear and measurable targets for land acquisition based on the land cover, meaning the habitat and the vegetation on the site. And then that is modeled for each habitat species for the covered species.
Oh, okay. So in the past, or in the previous draft plans, there has just been kind of like an overlay that says these are pre-approved areas. So you're saying you're not going to be doing that, but then how are you going to identify corridors or things like that if you don't, I guess, overlay or pre-select properties for mitigation?
Chair and Supervisor Desmond, I'm going to ask Mr. David Zippen, our ICF consultant who is advising on this, to speak to the more detailed issues of how that preserve is subsequently designed.
Okay.
David?
Thanks, Mark. This is David Zippin, and I'm with ICF and Supervisor Desmond to answer your question a little bit more. What we intend to do, as Mark said, is to use what we believe is a much more flexible approach that's criteria-based than the original pre-approved mitigation area overlay was. And it really follows the model that the more modern MSCPs have throughout California. It also, I think, will give the wildlife agencies much more certainty in conservation outcomes, which I think will speed approval of your plan. And it will give the development community, I think, also more flexibility in where land is either developed or set aside from willing sellers for the preserved system. So it would be a criteria-based plan that certainly would use some maps, but at a more general level that would not necessarily have hard boundaries like the PAMA maps do.
Well, how about taking developers out of the picture, just landowners that maybe want to subdivide their land or they want to farm their land? Is that, would there be any extra hoops for them to jump through, or if you're saying that the criteria, I mean, could the criteria impede them from farming or subdividing their land just in small pieces?
No, it would not. The MSCP, what it's designed to do is streamline and facilitate development that's consistent with the county's general plan and approve specific plans. And so it's not designed to say where development can or cannot occur. It's simply incentivizing conservation in the highest priority areas and development in areas where it's likely to have lower impacts on the covered species.
Okay, so I'm just kind of concerned about property owners and property rights. And the 2017 draft, and I keep bringing this up because this is the latest draft that we have, depicts the I-15 corridor, and much of the property and much of the land along the I-15 corridor is pre-approved mitigation area that is, or conservation area. And we've got RENA numbers that we have to deal with. We've got to build 6,700 homes in the next 8 years in San Diego County. And if you extrapolate that over 50 years, it's about 34,000 homes that are going to need to be built in San Diego County. And if we take all of the land along the I-15 that's right up adjacent to it, I mean, that should be land that's preserved for development, because for fire and evacuation, and it's a big piece of infrastructure that's already there. Would this new plan allow development along the 15 corridor and maybe put the conservation area further out? To me, that makes a little more sense.
There is habitat along the I-15 corridor for the gnatcatcher and other species. The new plan will evaluate that for its viability for development consistent with the general plan. And so we will be looking at that. We'll be looking at modifications to the current PAMA structure that was in the 2017 draft. And so we will look at that. There are also some crossings and linkages that the plan will need to address, but that can be a focus of updates and moving forward with option 5. Specific to the RENA analysis, the RENA number that we have, as you're aware, is 6,700 homes. We are currently undergoing an evaluation of our general plan and looking at that by income category and by density. The focus of our housing element is ensuring that there's enough higher density sites of 10 units an acre and higher. And so that evaluation will be returning back to the board in 2021 as part of the housing element update.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking these questions is because, and I get the environmental concern, and I just think we have to have a balance, and I'm all in favor of protecting the environment and making sure we have corridors and things like that. But we don't live in a vacuum. We've also got development, and I think if we're going to map or put criteria out for the conservation, we also have to have, where is development going to be placed as well? And like I said, to me, it'd be along that 15 corridor. And then also where agricultural land might be. So I'd like to see when this comes back, I know it's going to be a while, that we also, if there's going to be overlays of environmental land, we also have overlays of where development is going to be preferred, and then what also for farming. So I understand the benefits of the MSCP. It's a 50-year plan, and I just want to make sure we dot all the I's and cross all the T's to get this and move it forward. And I was a bit concerned about the dollar amounts in the ICF plan as of December 2019. The dollars amount, particularly for monitoring of the environmental or the land conservancies, whatever that number may be, was over 100,000 acres in the proposed in 2017, that it was $282 million over 50 years, but that was in today's dollars. You know, in 50 years from now, that could be in the billions of dollars. And I agree we need to do the monitoring, but I think we need to have a little more descriptive and up-to-date costs of then-year dollars for this 50-year plan. I'm okay with the option 5. I think we should move forward with it. I just want to make sure it's a balanced plan. And I agree we should be negotiating with the wildlife agency so that there are no surprises. I'd also like to, for guidance, I don't know if this is okay with the maker of the motion, but to include guidance to include landowners in the outreach. If we heard from the one group of landowners that they didn't feel included. So if we include landowners in the outreach, and then we analyze the development opportunities along the 15 corridor for development that encourages conservation away from the corridor. I think working with the Farm Bureau has already been brought up. And that I also would agree that removing the Rancho Wajido from the development or from the MSCP, that's a 1800s Mexican land grant that is still in place. And I think there's only 1 or 2 houses on like 35,000 acres. So I'd like to include that guidance in, if that's okay with the makers of the motion.
Let me ask staff, how are property owners involved in this process?
Through the chair, we have public outreach as based on board direction. If we proceed with option 5, we'll continue our work effort. We'll hold regional meetings. We'll have and continue to develop contact lists for the speakers who talked today. We'll certainly meet with them and anybody else who would like to be engaged in this overall process.
So how are you reaching out to property owners?
Supervisor Jacob, we will be doing a broad effort to reach out. We will be doing notices. In many of our projects, we include specific mail notices to all impacted property owners to develop email and other lists. So we'll include that as part of development of this plan.
I think Supervisor Desmond brings up a really good point, and the balance here must include property owners. It was in the South County plan, so I'd be happy to put that in the motion so it's part of the record that the staff also work with property owners.
Is that agreeable to the seconder of the motion? Supervisor Gaspar?
Yes.
Okay. Before we have further comments, I understand we have 2 other calls that came in. Let's go ahead and accommodate them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. We have 3789 on the line, 3789. And if the other caller wishes to testify, please call into the Zoom meeting at this time using the instructions that were provided.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Ginger Perkins. My comments today come from a background of experiencing raw land with a single family home since 1951. That's 69 years. Through necessity, I am very familiar with evolving land use issues. I'm very concerned that landowners have been omitted from this proposal. I have a list of MSCP requests. Number 1, requests that the county staff respond to my May 2020 comments and questions. Number 2, request all affected property owners providing habitat lands be notified by mail, not email, by mail. Few are participating today because few know about the MSCP. I request number 3, replacing the steering committee made up of special interests with a democratically balanced representative committee, including property owners. Many committee members today benefit financially off these conservation programs. 4, I request a mechanism whereby all county residents contribute to preservation, not just the honest landowners who have reserved habitat and are paying thousands of dollars of property taxes, huge water assessments to Metropolitan Water, County Water Authority, and local water districts, all on raw land that uses no water. 5, request reward for preservation, not punishment for preservation. Landowners on my boundaries have gone bankrupt due to overregulation. Why are these property owners being thrown under the bus again? Number 6, I have a question for the supervisors. Which of you supervisors will earmark 66 to 75% of your property or your property's value for public benefit? You would have a remainder use of 25 to 34% of your property. This matches the demand placed upon property owners who preserve habitat. Has anyone raised their hand? Number 7, request all open space lands honestly adhere to standards, not the current Wild West of destruction by unmonitored public use 24/7, bonfires at midnight, lights crossing the hills at 2 a.m., blazing new trails. An example of the PAMA implementation for 3 lots, about 25 gross acres. The owner may use 11.5 acres. On-site open space is about 13 acres. There would be a cash endowment paid by the owner to Escondido Creek Conservancy of about $650,000 for those 3 lots. That is $216,218 per lot. Yet the MSCP states land acquisition costs are about $22,000 an acre. This is absolute craziness. There is so much more to say, including backroom deals, so little time. Thank you very much for listening, and good luck. Bye.
Thank you. The other member of the public who indicated he wished to speak has not called into the Zoom meeting at this time. Chairman Cox.
Okay. I had a request from the clerk of the board to ask for a clarification on the motion. If that includes the reference to the I-15 corridor that Vice Chairman Desmond brought up.
I'd like to have that included.
Could you please clarify?
Well, that the part of, you know, that they analyze the development opportunities along the I-15 corridor that allows for development and encourages conservation away from the corridor. So basically looking at the main piece of infrastructure through the North County and looking at opportunities for development along that corridor.
I mean, isn't that also, let me ask the staff and the consultant, isn't that already a part of the MSCP development?
Supervisor Jacob, yes, that is going to be a part of the development of the plan if option 5 is selected.
So it's already there. So is there a reason to restate it in the motion?
Just to make sure that that gets done. That's part of the record.
No, no problem.
Okay, so one more, the Rancho Wajito I wanted to have removed. Is that, if you're not willing to do that, at least staff consider that moving forward to removing Rancho Wajito.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Rancho Wajito because it's a large piece of property and I know they're already doing agriculture on that property and they've done a phenomenal job of historic preservation as well as agricultural development. So how is this going to affect Rancho Wajito? I think, Jim, that's a good question.
Well, and I think at least consider that moving forward with staff. I don't have all the technical.
Well, let's ask staff. I'm asking staff right now.
Okay.
Through the chair, Supervisor Jacob. Our now plan includes not including Rancho Wajito in the formulation of the North County MSCP. We've had extensive conversations over the years with the ownership representatives of that area, and they're stridently opposed to being within the MSCP. And therefore, it creates a risk to the actual completion, formulation, and adoption of the MSCP. Alternately, with this recommendation, we do plan on investigating options in the Warner Springs Ranch area and Henshaw Valley, working with land ownership and jurisdictions within that area to consider if some portions of that area could contribute to this North County MSCP.
Okay, so Rancho Wajito, the entire 23,000 acres is out of the North County MSCP. Is that what I understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Great,
So
thank you.
so that's on the record. And so we're including in the motion then the language in terms of the I-15 corridor to make sure there's focus on the I-15 corridor and
Or development.
Infrastructure and development in that area.
Is that agreeable to the seconder of the motion?
It is, Chairman.
Okay. Just maybe some comments. I certainly recall very vividly the 1997 time period when we were dealing with the MSCP, and I was very pleased to support the MSCP in 1997. One of the advantages we had in South County, at least in my district, is we had a relatively small number of very large property owners that were all very supportive of the MSCP, because what it did was, or at least the intent was to give greater certainty to the owners of property and what they can develop, and also give greater certainty to the environmental community and people that were concerned about preservation of open space and habitat. The MSCP in South County, in my opinion, has not worked perfectly. But having said that, I think it's a lot better than not having the MSCP. I've been concerned more recently when we see organizations, environmental groups that have supported the MSCP, have supported, in the case of the Otay Ranch, the Otay Ranch Development Plan, supported the general plan update, and now come out in opposition to projects that are in conformance with the MSCP, with the general plan, and with the Otay Ranch Development Plan. We've had some issues with the resource agencies, but I have to tell you, by and large, I think we've been able to work out those issues. We had a dispute resolution process that we used very recently, and it hasn't been resolved yet. It's going before the Wildlife Conservation Board in December to make some modifications to what I think is a better plan in the case of Village 14 and the Otay Ranch Plan. So, I have some reservations. I'd be less than honest if I didn't say that. But on the whole, I think the MSCP plan has worked exceptionally well. The fact that we've already preserved close to 80,000 acres of land, that we're well over 80% of the way, or close to 80% of the way of accomplishing what our obligation was as a county of San Diego to preserve land for habitat preservation and for open space purposes. So with those caveats, obviously the MSCP plan protected, I believe it was 85 different species of plants and wildlife. We've had a few others that have come up since then, and we're still trying to sort through. But by and large, I think the MSCP plan has worked exceptionally well with a couple of hiccups along the way. So I'm going to support the item before us. I just hope that when people say that they're supportive of it, that they'll live by it. And with that, I think Supervisor Jacob, did you have some additional comments you wanted to make?
No, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, on some of your comments. I think the disappointment has been in some of the listings that were mandated by the court that we weren't expecting. If I remember, we agreed on preserving 86, something like 86 species. And because of the court ruling, that list has been added on to. So the deal points were really important that we laid out in the development of that South County MSCP. And I would hope that those would be adhered to. And in the end, the no surprises and whatever's agreed to on the listings, that should hold true. And the commitment by both the federal and state wildlife agencies need to be committed to that also, and not change the game or change the goalposts. And that, you're right, that has been problematic, but all in all, it's been a success. So thank you.
Very good. Are there any other comments from my colleagues? Hearing none, would the clerk go ahead and call the roll? We have a motion by Supervisor Jacobs, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar, to accept the staff recommendations on option 5 with the additional comments made by Vice Chair Desmond.
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye. Thank you very much.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Again, we thank all of the speakers on this item. And again, I think it's incumbent upon staff to make sure that they work with the affected property owners, and certainly the Farm Bureau has raised some issues on this, but I have confidence that staff's going to be working with all of those groups and environmental groups that have expressed interest in this item. So that completes the business before us today. Our next regular meeting of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors will be on Tuesday, November 17th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.